The 2021 Academy Awards are coming up next week, so I watched all 8 Best Picture nominees, and I'm here to give you my list from worst to best, because I had nothing better to do, it's a pandemic, so let's go. The lowest rated movie on my list, unfortunately, was Mank. Here you have a movie about a screenwriter named Herman J. Mankiewicz, who wrote one of the most legendary films of all time, Citizen Kane. I minored in film studies in university, so I was exposed to this movie about 15 years ago, and I love that movie. Mank had all the elements of a great movie. You had David Fincher, one of the best directors, directing the movie. You had Gary Oldman, one of the best actors and one of my favorite actors, as the starring role of Mank. And the movie was nominated for Best Picture, all signs pointing to something good. Sadly, I was pretty disappointed in this movie. 2 things I did like about this movie were its stylistic choices. They chose to mirror a lot of shots that were in Citizen Kane in this movie, as well as some of the editing. The captions seemed like they were typing it out in real time on a typewriter, and the transitions were pretty awesome. They also did a fade out by pulling all the exposure out of the scene, so it looked like a camera from the 40s, which I thought was very unique. On top of that, whoever played Orson Welles, that guy hit it spot on. There were more things I didn't like about the film, unfortunately. Specifically its story. It wasn't very engaging, and at the end it just seemed very inconsequential. It's weird that you choose to do a movie about Orson Welles and William Randolph Hearst, the 2 stars, you could say, of Citizen Kane, but then you sideline them, and instead you focus on the belligerent drunk who wrote the movie instead. The movie is just a series of conversations peppered with great acting from Gary Oldman and some interesting design choices, but unfortunately it falls a little flat for me. Also, unfortunately, Mank didn't have the trademark color grading you usually get from David Fincher movies, which I love. I love how his drab style just translates so well to his dramas, and it didn't have it. It was black and white. I get they were trying to echo the 40s, but it didn't work well for me, and I have to dock a point for that, unfortunately. This movie is definitely a 5 out of 10, my lowest rated for the Best Picture list, and I'll probably get some slack for that, but it's my opinion, I'm sorry. In 7th place, we have Nomadland. So Nomadland is a movie about a woman in her 60s who loses her job during the recession, and she starts to live out of her van and goes traveling until she meets a group of nomads, a self-subsisting society that they live by their own rules. I was pretty underwhelmed by this movie, but don't get me wrong, I'm very aware of its reputation on the awards circuit, on the festival circuit, but it just seemed a little flat for me. I have no doubt that it's bound to do well, maybe even win Best Picture. The premise of this movie intrigued me enough, and the reputation got me wanting to watch it, but maybe I set my expectations a bit too high. I found it dragging in certain parts, and I just wish they focused on another aspect of nomadic culture, because it was a very interesting concept, and it's an interesting reality too. The film does a good job of introducing you to how commerce works in this society, as well as how people live their lives with the lack of everyday items that we take for granted. I feel like I may need to rewatch this again at some point, but for now, I'm giving this movie a rating of 6 out of 10. Next up, we have Minari. So this movie follows a young Korean family who moves to Arkansas in the 1980s to start a farm. We follow their frustrations as well as their attempt at assimilation as they try to maintain their faith and family values. It is a slower paced movie and there's a lot to unpack, but that's because of its heavy-handed themes. The actress who played the mother in this movie, though, deserves her Oscar nomination, but the film, I think, needed something additional to engross me further. I liked how Minari covered the experiences of an immigrant family with a very convincing portrayal of 1980s America. It's a good film though, solid cinematography, and a great soundtrack. I'm giving this one a 7 out of 10. The next movie we have up is Promising Young Woman. This movie's about a woman who disguises herself and goes to clubs to seek out men who prey on inebriated women and teach them a lesson. I was under the impression this movie would be a bit exploitative, and I wondered why it was nominated for Best Picture at all. But then I discovered it was more than its premise suggests, and it's a definite conversation starter. It's a very focused social commentary on normalized rape culture perspectives and the crooked judicial system designed to protect offenders and exiled victims, and it's wrapped up in this package of a nice little revenge thriller. It distinguishes itself very well from the genre because it doesn't feature any gratuitous violence or gore. The tension comes more from the words and the moments in the script. The music in this movie is either a trendy pop song or an orchestral version of a pop song, and they're just very well placed and very tastefully done. There is some unique imagery in this movie, as well as there being a great ending to this film, which I did not see coming, so this is one I definitely recommend. A solid 7 out of 10 for me. The next movie we have up is The Trial of the Chicago 7. This was a great film about revolutionaries from different groups who find themselves in a courtroom in the 1960s that is designed to eradicate their missions. Visually, it's very accessible. A majority of it takes place in an American courtroom, but there are ample flashbacks and supplementary scenes to keep the pacing well structured. It's pretty captivating, and it had me consistently interested in the next scene. The performances all around are terrific, especially Sacha Baron Cohen and Frank Langella as the judge. The director is also the screenwriter, Hollywood legend Aaron Sorkin, whose script just fires on all cylinders. It's like watching an action scene with only words. I don't have much to say about this movie other than it was very enjoyable. There was a terrific cast of characters, and it's tightly paced and compelling. I just thought it was a very competently made film with nothing particularly distinguishing about any one aspect, so I'm giving it a solid 8 out of 10. It's a great blockbuster and a great Best Picture nominee. Next up we have Sound of Metal. This movie is about a drummer of a rock band who is slowly going deaf. He seeks therapy in a community for the deaf, but learns his personality clashes with the peace that this community has adopted. The main character, played by Riz Ahmed, his acting is phenomenal. I saw somewhere that he learned how to play the drums for this role, and you'd never know it because he blends so seamlessly into it. This movie probably has my favorite sound design of the 8 nominees, and along with that, it was also nominated for sound editing, which I feel it rightfully deserves. I like the poignancy of the script, and the characters in the scenario were very unconventional, but in a very compelling way. I wanted to see how he would adapt to this new lifestyle. I wanted to see if he would connect and be moved by this awesome community of people. There were a lot of scenes in this movie that didn't use dialogue to communicate the purpose of them, and that's just a masterful thing to do. I love watching the story and interpreting it from moving images rather than having someone spell it out for me through dialogue. And as an actor, Riz Ahmed really gets that message across to you. I'm rating this one easily an 8 out of 10. Next up we have Judas and the Black Messiah. This film is about a black man in the 1960s who steals cars, and when he's caught he cuts a deal with the FBI to infiltrate the Illinois chapter of the Black Panthers. I wasn't particularly excited for this movie because I thought it would just be another derivative and forgettable crime story from the 1960s, which is a period of human history I generally don't find interesting, but this movie was just riveting. The movie kept me hooked with every scene. Every moment just kept elevating the excitement and tension of the story, and this movie was very character driven. I'm glad I went into this movie blind because I didn't know the backstory, and that ending, it just shattered me. This is definitely my second favorite movie of the year. This is Judas and the Black Messiah, which I'm giving a 9 out of 10. The final movie of the Best Picture nominees is The Father. Not only are we at the end of this list, but we are at my favorite movie of the year and my favorite movie of the last few years. It's been a while since I've given a film a perfect 10 out of 10 rating, but here we are. The Father is a drama starring Anthony Hopkins and Olivia Colman about a man whose daughter is struggling to take care of him because of his worsening Alzheimer's condition. There are so many elements of this movie that I want to talk about, and I might do a video on it in the future, but for now, let me try to sell you on it. This movie is designed from a perspective you've never seen before. It's designed to make you feel the father's confusion through editing and framing and space transformation. The performances in this are just outstanding, especially when you can feel sympathy for the father, but also sympathize with his daughter. The film is even designed to be like a mystery thriller in which people's faces keep changing, time is out of order, and colors and spaces are malleable and distorted. There are a lack of establishing shots in this movie, and the claustrophobia and the colors really make you feel like you're going insane as a viewer. I highly recommend this movie. I hope it wins Best Picture and Best Actor again for Anthony Hopkins, although it probably won't. This movie's a perfect 10 out of 10 for me, and I urge you guys to watch it. It's my favorite of the Best Picture nominees. And that's, I can go on about this movie. Maybe I will in the future, but please watch my favorite movie of the year and of the last few years, The Father. That's it for my list, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'd love to hear your comments down below, what your guys' lists are, what you thought of the nominees, what you thought of the movies, and maybe I'll do another list like this next year, but look forward to more reviews. Some of these individual ones I mentioned in this list, I definitely want to explore more, but thank you so much for watching, guys, and take care. Peace out.